Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Winds channel, and I'm going to take a look at the astrological weather forecast for the week of April 12th through the 18th on this beautiful spring windy day here in Arizona. And remember last week I said the theme of the week was enlightened self-interest, especially with all the Aries energy going on, the new moon in Aries, and which was just last night actually. And this week is another week, just like last week, where there's a lot of energy going on. The energy is getting really dense right now, really full, really complex. And like I said earlier in the month, we have all the planets, main planets, going direct right now. So the energy is really pushing forward, which can really add to that density. It really can feel like almost as if things are just flying by so fast that it's hard to really process a lot of what's going on right now on a deep level. And this week we have another, like I said, another very dense week. And I would say that the theme of this week on a general level is a leap of personal growth that will be occurring for most of us. And it's some very, very dynamic energy late in the week going on between Mars and Jupiter mainly, and also Mercury, and a little bit of Pluto thrown in for good measure. But there's some stuff earlier in the week to talk about first, and I wanted to touch on a few other things too. So today, Monday, the 12th, this week starts with Juno, the asteroid that represents the partner or wife on the female archetypal level. So Juno is going retrograde on Monday. And what's interesting about this is that as it's stationing retrograde, it's in an opposition with Mars. So Juno really represents partnerships more than anything. And when you see it's going retrograde, it can start to bring up issues in partnerships from the past, or maybe even partners from the past will literally come back into your life in some significant way, or some kind of issue connected with them. With your current partners, it can also bring up a slowing down of things, or maybe reaching a loggerheads in certain issues where you're just kind of getting stuck, and maybe things have to be kind of brought back in and contemplated for each partner as to what that means. Now, what's interesting with that Mars there, that's kind of pretty fiery. I mean, it can get people in a very selfish kind of mode where partnerships that are on shaky ground could definitely be ended. And someone may take the action of like, hey, enough is enough in this situation, and this partnership is going to end. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean romantic partnerships. Partnerships come in all kinds of different forms. So, when you see the Mars there, Mars can bring in that very angry or self-centered energy, which of course works against the flow of a harmonious relationship. So we may see some issues come up with partners early this week where it can get us on a personal level very upset or angry with our partner, and possibly taking some kind of step back because of Juno going retrograde. Now, on Tuesday, the Sun is sextile Mars, and at the same time is conjunct Eris too, which is interesting because once again this feeds very subjective personal energy. So you can see already how the energy of this week is really coming in to us as individuals because of the Mars energy. Mars being one of the two most egotistical, so to speak, or individualistic or subjective planets that are in our astrological makeup in our solar system. So basically, when the Sun sextiles Mars, we have a lot of energy to access, but like our interest levels are purely subjective. So usually, there's a lot of opportunities to push our pet projects or what we're really into. And usually we can make good connections with people too, as long as our interests like integrate one with one another well. Otherwise, you'll find out that most other people will kind of like drag you or slow you down from where you want to go with it. So usually, if it's really good energy for pushing your own stuff, but not so much in a way where it's bringing up resistance from others. Now, you throw in the Eris there, and that, may be a little bit tough. And you throw in the Mars being opposite the Juno in that partnership thing all at the same time, and we may find, that there is maybe just some like agreement that the best thing to do is for each person to work on the thing that they're most interested in doing, and that we can bring some harmony with others back that way. Now, what's interesting too, like I said, like I've been saying, every week the moon will lock in to that Saturn-Uranus square one day each week in a strong or tense way, and it happens to be on Tuesday again this week too, where the moon will conjunct Uranus and square Saturn that day. So there may be some upsetting events that trigger us emotionally, that are kind of very out of the ordinary and chaotic. And what we may try to do in this situation then is try to somehow put a clamp on that situation and try to restrict it somehow. So that's going to be an interesting day, an interesting first 2 days of this week, of just trying to find that right balance of what you're fired up with and being able to maybe connect with others. And if not, just really, taking the project on yourself and just, moving forward with whatever is really motivating you yourself. On Wednesday, we have a planet changing signs this week, and that is Venus. And Venus is going to go into Taurus on Wednesday, which is a good thing. Venus in Taurus is one of the signs that Venus actually rules, and where Venus can really enjoy the sensual and earthly pleasures of this plane of reality. Basically, Venus is very comfortable in Taurus. The goddess prefers the finer things in life, and that's what the Taurus energy will bring in, the enjoyment of just the things we love the most. And then as far as our relationships, really, really, really love to be with our friends and family when Venus is in Taurus, and be very generous with them, be there for them, enjoy life together, do pleasurable activities together, things like that. The biggest issue with Venus in Taurus is that she just doesn't really want to deal with heavy emotional stuff, but she really just wants to enjoy the finer things in life, and is very dedicated to her friends, and may not necessarily let too many more new friends in, but is very, very solid and stable with the ones she has. So that's really a nice energy to bring in, especially now with all this Aries energy going on. It's, this will get us back into maybe, relating to others, or at least to the ones who are close to us, in more harmonious ways. Also on Wednesday, a couple other things to mention is Mars is semi-square Uranus. So this is an interesting energy because it can bring in sudden upsets, things like, events or behaviors from others that can be, frustrating or annoying to us, and can also bring like short bursts of very dynamic energy. So like you can get like a blaze of energy and get a lot of things done in a small amount of time. But the problem with the Mars Uranus is it can be very impulsive and chaotic at times. So it has a way of kind of like shooting itself in the foot or getting itself into its own mess ups or jams because it hasn't really thought out its actions very well, and so can kind of go into things blindly and end up in frustrating situations. So that's going on Wednesday too, and at the same time Mercury is conjunct Ceres, which is once again we have like different energies pulling back and forth. Mercury Ceres is like the ability to communicate on all kinds of levels with all different kinds of beings, and including like plants and spiritual beings and things like that. Like just really being able to get that kind of connection. But like the negative side of that too is having an expectation that others may know what you need, and without voicing that well, maybe they're not going to actually be able to meet what you need and fall short, and then you kind of feel frustrated or upset. But it's the non-communication of what you need that initializes that kind of misunderstanding that's going on. So very, very interesting push and pull kind of day on Wednesday. Thursday through Saturday and even into Sunday is where the crux of this week is really going to like reach an apex point. And what we have going on is Mars is going to be exactly trine Jupiter, with Mercury sextiling both Mars and Jupiter. So Mercury will be on the midpoint of Mars and Jupiter's trine. And at the same time, both the Sun and Mercury are squaring Pluto, and Mars is quincunxing Pluto. So this is really, really interesting. And then the Sun is also sextiling Jupiter, and Mercury is also sextiling Mars. So there's all kinds of like dynamic energy coming together. And it starts on Thursday when the Sun sextiles Jupiter, and that usually brings in a lot of growth opportunities. So this is where you can see this personal growth energy really start to pick up. And it's a very positive aspect by itself, because usually people have a very optimistic attitude under that kind of energy. So it's almost like you're creating your own good fortune by having this positive attitude, and then also extending that out onto others in a very generous and outgoing way. So it kind of closes the loop and comes back to you in ways that are fortunate, and it's really good for like business opportunities, things like that. But what's interesting, by Friday the Sun does a square to Pluto, when Mercury will also be getting close to that exact square to Pluto on Saturday. So when I look at this all together, the Mars and Jupiter with Mercury there too is an incredible potential for personal growth to occur this in the later part of this week. Then in a very flowing way, there's a lot of like energy available to us to tap into, and by keeping like an optimistic attitude about things, it really is like this self-creating loop of like personal growth and benefits that can come from that and expansion that can come from that. But what's interesting is I think it's rooted in the depth of what the Mercury and Sun square Pluto and Mars conjunct Pluto is seeing. Like right now, I think what's happening is we're able to see a lot of the things inside us that are blocking us. A lot of the shadow subconscious stuff that's inside our own psyche. We can actually get a better look at that, and we can also see where other people or situations are blocking us too. Now, a lot of times with the Pluto, when it sees that kind of stuff with the Sun Mercury square, it can react in very resentful and angry ways and end up in power struggles. And this is still a possibility. It's still a possibility that that kind of thing can happen with certain people. If the resentment and anger over being blocked has built up so much and it feels like an immovable force, these squares are going to just like want us to move forward. The tension's just going to get to a point where it's like motivating us to like actually do something about situations that are literally breaking down around us, and situations where we see the depth of how far these things are influencing our behavior on a subconscious level, and wanting to like really get a grip on that. And then normally that can be really, like I said, can really get us into like conflict, disagreement, coercion, things like that with other people. But instead we have this nice flow of this Mars, Jupiter, Mercury thing going on. And so what I'm thinking is that is going to motivate us to actually want to take those leaps forward. That is what's going to spur us to go for the personal growth, to realize that we have some power to move forward and break out of these situations that we're in, and just fall into a flow where we can really get a lot of benefit out of the actions we take. So we have like when Mercury and Jupiter get together, they have a really good, long, broad vision of things. And they're working for the future. They're working in a very like planned and organized way for a broader or wider or long range type plan. So here we have all this dynamic energy coming together and expanding like these opportunities to do that, and just having this great flow of being able to do that. I mean, Mercury and Mars together are very stimulating. Like the mind will stimulate the body to act, and Mercury with Jupiter has the plan that they're going to act upon. So then you bring Mars and Jupiter together in that trine, and it's like, yes, I'm moving forward, I'm in this flow, I'm getting this great kickback of personal growth and expansion, and that is going to go into a positive feedback loop of what looks to be bringing benefits or getting good luck, which is actually just being self-created by having that right attitude, by having the right plan, and by having the motivation to act on that. So this is just a great week by the end of the week to really push forward on anything that you're really personally interested in and really motivates you, and what you perceive as expanding your world, and that can have the ability of like, refining our values, our attitudes, and things like that. So it's really, really good too for all types of business connections. When you bring in the Mercury and the Jupiter, can really, really bring up a lot of different opportunities to, to associate or coordinate with others on business projects, on things that are like expanding anything that has to do with what you are personally interested in, and that you're willing to take and act on. So it really is just a self-fulfilling loop of just putting out that positive energy and getting a response to that positive energy. So it's just and then if you think about the Pluto aspect of this too, if we're using that Pluto energy to bring in this new stuff, then it can be very transformative. Instead of like latching on to the past, instead of getting stuck on the things that are blocking you, if we're using that to just purge that stuff out of the way, then all this new stuff that we're motivated about can really move forward in big leaps. So really, really interesting. It can turn that Pluto energy into something very, very transformative, even though the initial thing can maybe seeing these blocks that we may have, or seeing how we're being blocked by others or situations, can be frustrating and angering. In the long run, we can take that Pluto and do complete transformation with it instead. So very, very dynamic energy working together at the end of this week, which can really propel your life forward in an expansive and personal growth way. And then on Sunday, to add to the subjectiveness of everything else going on this week with all the Mars energy, we have the Sun conjuncting Mercury. And this is the superior conjunction. So once again, great time to start new projects, new things. Great self-involvement, like in the sense that really deep interest in certain subject matters that's really, subjective to you, but also very motivating to move forward. And the biggest danger with the Sun Mercury is we may not be receptive enough to other people's ideas. Like we may be so convinced that we have the right way completely that we're not being a good listener or taking in more energy, especially with it in Aries too, because we can be so headstrong in Aries and convinced that we're right, that it's sometimes very hard to hear what other people are saying. But if last week was enlightened self-interest, then this is taking that enlightened self-interest up the next step to this personal growth zone and seizing this opportunity to do that, because there's this energy is out there and it can be tapped into. One of the interesting things too I wanted to mention, if you look up in the sky, especially in the past week, and been tracking Mars, and so Mars right now is like, by the time the sun sets, Mars is already in the western part of the sky. It's been it's setting before midnight easily at this point. But if you'll notice this week, Mars is in between two other stars. It almost looks like two stars here, and then Mars is right in between them, but a little bit below them. And the two stars that Mars is in between is actually the horns of the bull in Taurus. And it's a very interesting place in space to be, because it is next to one of those stars is one of the big influential fixed stars that certain astrologers use, and it's called El Naf, and it's one of the horns of the bull. And El Naf is a star that has to do with using weapons. And it's very interesting. It's not necessarily a negative start, because like sometimes weapons can be used in a positive way. And what is a weapon? There's like a lot of things can be used as weapons, but what's interesting about it is Mars, of course, is that very, self-motivated, subjective, kind of egotistical energy that can easily get angry. And here it is in this place in space right now between the horns of the bull, where weaponry can be used for either good or bad purposes. And you can't help but notice during this period of this week where it's been there that we've had several mass shootings. So you can see how this energy, when you're not conscious of this energy, the use of weaponry can be used in a very negative way. But we also have the ability to use weapons in a very positive way. And it doesn't have to even be a physical weapon. There's a lot of things that can be used as a weapon that can be an abstraction too, and not be used in a negative way, but used in a positive way. So very, very interesting energy going on right now, because it does feed that Aries energy that's very subjective, very driven by the self, and sometimes very blindly driven by anger or aggression. And when Mars is going into this place through the sky where, all of a sudden someone who's feeling that places their hand on some kind of weapon, and then what are they going to use that for? Are they going to use that for some kind of destructive purpose, or are they going to use it to be some kind of, let's say, peaceful warrior instead? So very interesting place where Mars is in the sky, and it's starting to separate from the horns at this point, but you can still go up there and look at it tonight and see where it's kind of between the two horns of the bull. All right, this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel, and it is on YouTube. Every week on Monday, join YouTube, become a follower, turn on your notifications, and you'll never miss. I'm also available on all kinds of podcasts. Just go to your favorite podcast and see if I'm there by looking up the Astrological Winds channel. Getting a lot of people listening on the podcast these days. My email is matthuE823@gmail.com. If you would like a reading, I'm available for all kinds of readings, natal charts, predictive, looking at your next year, and relationship charts, all types of different charts. I also have beginning astrology classes available on Dropbox. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, just drop me an email at matthuE823@gmail.com. And if you would like to help me out, the best way you can help me out is to spread the blog to anyone who you think would be interested in it. Let it get out there. So please share the link, become a follower, and get the word out there. All right, so a week of personal growth opportunity. So what are you going to do with it is the question. Until next week, this is Matt Lawton in the Astrological Winds channel.